Hi, I'm Amber and welcome to the Inspiration Den. Today we're going to be making a really easy sauerkraut recipe that you can just do in a few simple steps. So today we're going to go ahead and create the easiest fermenting recipe you could ever do. I'm not sure where you're at in your fermenting journey, but for me, the go-to recipe is always going to be a simple basic sauerkraut. And so all you need is just a head of cabbage and some salt and you're ready to go. So let's get started. So I really wanted to touch on some of the other things I have on the table. You don't need any of this stuff except for the jars. You'll need jars. But other than that, like this is all extra stuff that you can get if you're really into fermenting and you want to keep going with it and it's something that you've gotten a passion or a bug for, then by all means, grab all this stuff. I'm gonna explain a little bit of what it is. It's all gonna be on my blog, but I just wanted to go over it real quick. This is, we're gonna pack our jars full of the sauerkraut when we're done, and this is kind of just to help you pack it down. And it's really helpful, so you might wanna grab one of those if you're into it. These are fermenting weights that you can use for wide mouth jars. They also have them for the regular mouth jars, and you can buy those on Amazon. You can get 2 or 4 in one pack for pretty good prices. And then we have some items for fermenting. So instead of burping your sauerkraut every day, you can just put this on and it does the job for you. So this is stuff that you can get and it helps with the fermenting, but it's not something you have to have by any means. I'm gonna do some hacks for you. You can make your sauerkraut without any of this stuff. Okay, so let's get started and I'll show you how to make a super simple sauerkraut. You're gonna first wanna take your head of cabbage and you're gonna wanna just slice it right down the middle, like this. Easy. Oh my gosh. Okay, so we'll cut this part out. All right, so once you do that, look how pretty that looks. So you wanna take your sauerkraut and you wanna core out this part right here. I keep saying sauerkraut, but I'm meaning cabbage. So you wanna core the cabbage right here, just take this white part out. Also, I'm using a purple sauerkraut. I'm using a purple head of cabbage. For some reason, I just love the flavor and the texture and all the things about the purple cabbage, but you can get the green, those are great too. After you cut your cabbage in half, you just wanna take off like the leaves on the outside that kind of seem a little bit, icky. It's super easy, just kind of like peel them off, and you wanna save these for when you're done with your creating your sauerkraut, because we can use these to top our jars if you don't happen to have fermenting weights. You'll use these with a baggie full of water to weigh down the sauerkraut below the brine. So I'll explain that later. All right, then you're gonna go ahead and cut that core out of your cabbage. And it's like so easy, see? All done. And then this is kind of like the funner, more relaxing part. You're gonna go ahead and just shred your cabbage. You can use a mandolin, you can use your food processor. It's quick and easy to me, so I like to go ahead and just like chop it up, and it goes fairly quickly. So watch your fingers and just start like chopping fairly thin like ribbons, so it comes out like this. And even when you get kind of some inconsistencies, the chunkiness of like the cabbage is kind of pretty good to me. It's like nice and pickly and yummy. So you're gonna go ahead and do that. And don't worry, like there's no I feel like right or wrong way. Like this kind of seems a little bit thick to me, so I'm just gonna go ahead and like slice it down the middle and I have like a thinner piece. And don't be fearful about fermenting. Just as long as you always have the right salt ratios, you'll be just fine. And just go ahead and taste it. You always know if you smell it. If it smells bad, it's bad. There's obvious ways to tell if it's bad, but don't let that freak you out. You just kind of start and you'll figure out ways that you like it too. Like at first I followed a recipe and I was like super strict about that, but then I started kind of like doing my own thing, and I have like a go-to favorite flavored sauerkraut that I'll show you next on my next video, but I literally use it on everything. All right, that part's done. Then you can go ahead and throw it in your bowl. Okay, and we'll just keep going with this other half. I'm gonna go ahead and core it out like we did last time. Just start chopping away. I mean, the health benefits of sauerkraut are just insane. Like some people use probiotics, and I mean, I use a probiotic, but a lot of people only use fermented foods as their probiotics, like sauerkraut, kefir, Greek yogurt. Like my family, we eat sauerkraut with almost every single meal. Or you can also do kimchi. Like there's so many things when talking fermenting that you could do. It's so much fun. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and add this to your bowl. If you have a big giant bowl, use that big giant bowl. So I've already weighed my cabbage and I've like pre-portioned my salt here. Check my blog and you can see what salt to cabbage ratio that you want to use. So now what you want to do is take your cabbage and your salt. You're gonna go ahead and pour it over the top like this. And you're just gonna start just kneading the cabbage. And what this does is it lets out all the water and juices out of the cabbage and it starts to get like translucent almost, and you'll see, I mean, you might want to use gloves too if you have the purple cabbage. This cabbage does like turn your fingers purple, but I mean, it comes off right away. It's like a natural dye, but you just kind of want to start squeezing the cabbage, and the salt helps like extract the moisture out of the cabbage. This is why you want to use a big, huge bowl. It's kind of a relaxing process. You can just sit in here and just, get all your aggression out. No, just kidding. So you can already see the water coming out of the cabbage. It's getting like definitely a lot smaller and the juice is coming out. I mean, I have 2 little kids, and so sometimes I have to leave my projects and come back, and that's fine. Luckily this isn't one of those things that it needs to be done all in one foul swoop either. So after 10 minutes, you should be able to hold up your cabbage and you'll see water droplets falling out of it. Water will start squeezing out. You can set a timer if you want. If not, just, I think feeling the process, you'll see that the thing is you really want that, the water to come out, because that's gonna be the brine that will help ferment your cabbage when we put it in the jars. So you have to make sure there's plenty of water that comes out of your cabbage. I have had in the past, I've made so many different kinds of sauerkraut, but in the past I've had like a drier head of cabbage, and I've had to just create a brine solution and just pour it over the top, and that works just fine too. We're gonna go ahead and cut to the next step so that you're not having to watch me knead my sauerkraut, but when it's done, I'll show you the finished product before we go to the next thing. Okay, so we just kneaded this cabbage for like 10 minutes or so, whatever. When you see the liquid start coming out of the cabbage, that's when you know it's ready. So you can see in my bowl here, it's a glass bowl. So you can see at the bottom, there's a bunch of water just like pooling at the bottom there. And that's when you know it's ready to start jarring. So go ahead and grab your jars. I like the wide mouth jars because you can easily get the sauerkraut inside the jar. Usually I'll make 2 of these per head of cabbage, but also another fun fact, if you can't afford to buy jars from like Target or wherever, you can find these at the Goodwill and different things, like big boxes of jars, and it helps the cost of making this. So now let's go ahead and just start adding the sauerkraut to the jars. So you kind of want to start packing it down, with your hands, and you just keep stuffing it in there. And you could take this if you have one. If not, I used to use a spoon or like whatever you have and start packing it in there like that as far as you can. And that also helps extract some of the moisture out of the sauerkraut, out of the cabbage as well. And just pack it in really tight. I'm sure some of you can be a lot neater than me, but whole process here for me. And then what you want to do is take some of the juices from your bowl, some of the brine here. Don't use it all because you need to use it on the next jar too, but you're going to kind of dump it in there and pack it in. So see how it's coming up already? And then you want to take your weight and you plop it in like that and kind of press it down. You can see the water coming above the brine level there. There you go. And just make sure all your cabbage is below the water level. So you can see there, that's all below the water level. So then you want to go ahead and just clear it off the top like this. Take your lid, your fermenting lid. If you have a fermenting lid, go ahead and add that like this on top. And then, okay, so this is what I want to talk about. I have fermenting weights, these glass things here, and that helps like pack down the cabbage so it doesn't go above the brine. You want to always make sure your sauerkraut or your cabbage stays below the water line. But if you don't have that, don't go out and buy it like right away. You should see if you love this first, but that's why we kept some of the cabbage leaves. So what you're gonna do is like pack the cabbage leaves. I'll show you here on this next jar. So you're gonna go ahead and add the sauerkraut to the jar. Okay. You'll take your leaf, these leaves here, kind of tuck it in like that. And then you want to take a baggie, like a Ziploc baggie, fill it with water, and just put it on top. And that helps weigh down the sauerkraut. So it's super easy and simple. So then we'll put it on the counter and we'll let it sit in like a cool, darkish place. I know it just depends on the weather, like summer, like my ferments ferment way quicker than they would ferment in the winter. So what you want to do is taste your sauerkraut as it goes. It usually takes about a week. It's kind of like your preference. Like, do you want it very sour or do you like it still very crispy? I like to have mine on the counter for about a week and I'll taste it and see how it is. And I like it still a little bit crunchy, but you still get like that pickly sour taste. So after a few days, go ahead and taste it. If you like it, put it in the fridge and it can stay up in the fridge for months. But what you want to do every day. So for me, I have these like nifty little lids where it has like little airlocks and things. So the gases are able to escape from the jar. You know, and that's like something that builds up when you have a ferment. It creates a natural gas and you'll start to see little bubbles start forming. So when you touch your jar, you'll see all these little tiny bubbles come up here and you're like, it's exciting because you're like, ooh, it's actually working. And so if you don't have these kind of lids, I also link below some other lids that'll work for you too that are really easy. You kind of like add it to the ring of the ball jars and it's so simple. But if you don't have those, what you're gonna wanna do is every day you're gonna open your lid and you're gonna burp it and let out the gases and then close it up and then let it sit for the next day. And the next day open up and you're gonna burp it and let the gases out. So it's really important because you don't wanna create like a miniature bomb or anything. You know, you don't want the gases to start like building up, and it might seem overwhelming, but it's not at all. It's just a few easy steps that you're gonna need and you're gonna be able to have your own homemade sauerkraut at home, your own little probiotic in your fridge. All right, so if you guys have any questions or comments, go ahead and comment below and I will be happy to reply back, or I wanna hear your experiences too. Like, tell me like your first ferment, your favorite recipe, all the things, and we can talk about that also. Thanks so much for watching The Inspiration Den, all things homemaking, design, and fermenting. If you liked what you saw, go ahead and subscribe, like, hit the bell icon so you don't miss any of my future content that comes out. And you can always follow me on Instagram at The Inspiration Den. Thanks again for watching.